Guys, I have a crazy, wild NDE to go through today, and it's just so interesting that I finally checked this out. I'm going to give a shout out to the gentleman who sent me this video in a moment. Finally got to see it, and I'm so glad I saw it right now after everything that I've been learning from Intuitive Underground and after that incredible interview from Intuitive Underground, because this interview or this NDE account on the Jeff Mara podcast confirms this idea of base reality. And in like crazy detail. Obviously, we have the data from Intuitive Underground from these remote viewing experiences, but this is like vivid detail, vivid recollection. It is wild. And had I seen this a year ago, even 6 months ago, I think I would have discounted it as a one-off tale. And there's so much information that I've learned in the last few months that, man, it's really making me really think about this and ponder it and give it way more credibility than I would have back in the day. So it's just perfect timing. And this is wild. This is wild if you have not seen this. So I've broken it down into a bunch of sections and a bunch of subtopics, but there's a lot of this that we got to get to because there's so much good stuff in this NDE. So buckle up. Here we go. We are continuing down this path. We are learning more and understanding about what is really going on in this life, in this existence, in this reality, and beyond this exact reality. So here we go. Quick shout out to Andrew W. So I'm not sure if he wanted me to say his full name, so I'm just going to call him Andrew W. But you know who you are. You emailed me this video about a week ago or something, and then you followed up a few days later. I'm finally got around to seeing it, and I've just been watching it for the last hour and taking notes and getting this presentation set up, and I'm just blown away, and I can't wait to get into it. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So this is Rachel Corpus on the Jeff Mara podcast. And you can see here the title. This is, she says, "We're all in pods." That's the title of, or I guess the thumbnail, whatever. But before we start with this story, I wanted to first include this little introductory bit where she explains who she is. Okay. And I think she's trying to basically, for anybody who's listening who may not be familiar with this material at all, they might be listening and say, oh, she's crazy, she's wild, right? That's like the typical go-to for most people. Oh, they're crazy, they're insane, they're stupid, they're whatever. So she's kind of giving herself, I think, or trying to present some credibility to her character and what she's done in life so people don't dismiss her. But honestly, for me, and I think for the rest of you, we don't even need this because you listen to the way she speaks. And I do find her to be very intelligent, very eloquent in how she discusses things. But just as a courtesy to her, I want to share this with all of you guys who are about to hear everything that she has to say, just to give a little bit more color to the entire story. So here is who Rachel Corpus is in her own words. Oops, here we go.
Now, I want to say first, just to share my credibility for a moment. In my first NDE, I was shown that I was a seraphim angel. So that's how I know I'm an angel. And I'm a very well-educated person. I'm a mom and a wife. I've been a certified teacher. I've been to seminary. I pay my bills. I do all the things. I'm right with myself. I'm good in my skin. And I navigate this life where I help people. I officiated a funeral the other day. I'm in this earth to be a human. And also what's inside of me, I am an angel. I'm not religious. I'm more spiritual, but that's who I am. And part of that DNA in me is that I've been shown throughout my life elements of this existence that not everybody else sees. And the motive behind that is I see it first, I digest it, and then when it's time, I'm supposed to share that message because angels are messengers. We're not special, we're just messengers. And so this is one of those messages.
Now, when I first heard that, I thought, okay, she'd been told maybe in these various NDEs that this is who she is and she is an angel. But then I thought, okay, well, this could clearly be a manipulation from entities or from the archons or from whoever it may be during these spiritual encounters that they told her this, and now she's believed it. Like, it could be a misconception of sorts. But I don't know. When you hear the entire video, she's very aware of the manipulation that happens when you go into these NDEs, the light, the whole thing. So I don't know much about angels. I don't know much about the role of angels in this universe or in this multiverse, whatever. So I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm going to take her at her word for how she feels about herself. Like, I just don't know. Either way, you're going to see as you hear her speak that if I'm to use my discernment, it just feels it feels authentic. That's what I'll say. It feels very authentic. And especially with everything we've been hearing from the remote viewing accounts that seem to corroborate exactly what she's saying, except for what she's saying is in vivid detail. Now, I do think possibly that some of the information that she received in this experience was manipulated intentionally, and there's a lot to go through here. So I'll be chiming in and explaining it at those moments when I think certain things have been manipulated and maybe when certain things she's relaying correctly. But anyways, without further ado, let's get into the mix. We got a lot of content to go through, a lot of clips. This one I think is a particularly long one, so I may be interjecting here and there. I'll do my best to not interrupt too much, but now we get in to the good stuff, the NDE and what she saw in what I believe is base reality.
I was having a heart attack. And so I was laying in bed with my husband. I was laying on my side, and I felt my whole body seize up. And it started at the heart, and then it went through the rest of my body, very much like a lightning bolt or an electric pulse all of a sudden. And it didn't hurt, it just was strong. And the next thing I know, I was being pulled from my body, and I was being pulled from my wings. So it's like if you were wearing a backpack and someone was saying, okay, this way, little one. I was being pulled this way, and I was being pulled up. And what I saw was it felt like I was about 40 feet above my bed. I was looking at myself and my husband, and I was looking through a control room. And there were other humans there, and there were computers. This was like a control room. And they could see my body, my husband's body, and then the rest of the control room.
So real quick, but like I'm not exactly sure. This part is a little confusing to me, but it's almost like she was pulled interdimensionally. It's not like she traveled a long distance, just yanked out, boom, and then she's popped into base reality, where then she can look back into this planet or the simulation, or the simulacra, I think is one of the words that people use. It's just what I think she is saying. I'm not totally sure what the transportation process was to get back to this control room.
It had no ceiling. It was an enormous, infinite place full of other humans, and they all had their job to do. But when they noticed that I was there, they noticed, and their expression was, oh, she's here. Oh, she's here. And then they made a phone call. I waited there for a moment, and another human came in, a man, and he gave me a tour. He said, we know we've been expecting you. We didn't know when, but we're here to show you what this place is. This is Soul Earth Exile 13. Don't touch anything. We're just going to show you these different levels.
Okay, so what my take is on this initial clip, when I first listened to that, I thought, okay, so they said, oh, she's here. Oh, she's here. That to me felt as though she wasn't meant to be there, but this could potentially be happening if everybody is in the space reality and they're kind of immersed in this matrix, kind of like in the movie. Occasionally there could be glitches in the matrix or glitches in the system, and we pop out of this matrix and kind of back into base reality in some form. It seems like in an avatar form, right? Obviously your body's not coming out of the pod, but your consciousness is popping back into base reality for some whatever reason. And so it must be happening on a relatively frequent basis, so they know when it happens what to do. But to me, the way that sounded was, oh, then we got to play along like, oh, she's here. Okay. Oh, so yeah, we were expecting you. It's all good. We're going to show you what Soul Earth Exile 13 is, like, as if they have a protocol for the entities or the souls or the energy bodies that pop back into that reality to kind of explain things in a way that keeps them calm and then eventually gets them to come back and return to whatever is happening here for energy generation, for information extraction, as intuitive underground believes is happening in this simulation. So that was my 2 cents. Now, by the way, when she says Soul Earth Exile 13, when I first heard this, I thought she was talking about that's what base reality is. No, she's talking about this planet within this universe, within this simulation, if you will. It is called Soul Earth Exile 13. She explains, I believe, in this next clip, why it's called Soul Earth Exile 13. But here she now goes on to the description that she gets of these various levels in what I'm going to just call base reality, because she is, in fact, she calls it base reality later on in this interview.
First level I was shown was this level where they didn't show me what any of these levels were called, but I'll call it the control room. And as I was looking around, all of these people were at these control boards and they were looking at different parts of the world. I saw people sleeping. I saw people at their jobs. I saw different parts of the country. This was all Earth. There are people simply watching, typing things. They were talking to each other. I will also tell you that when we moved into the house where I'm moving now, which was after this NDE, the first night we moved here, I heard someone say, the family is now asleep. And I heard that same voice when I was in this NDE. And it was the woman that was overseeing the computer at our house. So I had this fade in of that control room. I could hear them talking about our family. So I was not allowed to talk to her, but these people could see me and they were not alarmed to see me. It's like I was just there on a tour. So we went through these big doors and there was this elevator and we got on the elevator and it seemed to go down forever. And when we finally stopped, we went to this level where there were a bunch of people coming in that seemed like they were there for the first time. They were confused. Some of them were scared, and they were talking to each other about where they were from. One person was from Denver. One person was from Japan. And they were all trying to talk to each other. No one knew what was going on. Then they were told to stand in a line. A door opened. They walked through the door. I was able to follow with this tour guide and stood at the back of the wall and watched what happened. And these people were simply told, you'll be able to ask questions later. You are safe. Be with us. Just follow along for now. And the thing that was talking to them looked like a human, but it was a humanoid. It was this AI being. And these people naturally were saying, where are we? What is this? I was asleep and I woke up here. So it was clear that all of these people, this wasn't an NDE for them. They had been asleep and they thought that they were dreaming. And they said, you are not dreaming. Your body is asleep, but you are here. So I was able to follow these people through their journey. And that's why I was there. I was observing. So I followed these people. They went to the next level and they were shown that they were going to go through a certain cycle of now being on this planet that they were calling, or this, actually, Jeff, I don't know if it's a planet or a dimension. I don't really know. I'm hearing from Gabriel Planet, Soul Earth Exile 13. And they went into this next room where they were given this kind of what do you call it when you have your first job? Orientation. And they said, you will be here and you will, for as long as it takes, you will be trained to be in this space and work here for a designated amount of time. This is not a punishment. And these people just went nuts for a second. And then one man in the room said to everybody else, he was a peer, he was there with them, he said, I've been here before, don't freak out. If you freak out, they're going to take you from the room. And he said, just trust me, trust me. So everybody kind of calmed down a little bit. A woman was asking, how long will we be here? And the humanoid that was guiding them said, I cannot tell you that, just be here with me now, and you can ask questions later. So some time passed. The next thing I remember was that these people were in another room. They had different clothes on now, and they had been given an assignment. And their assignment was to see where they were living. They were living in this kind of apartment complex, but it was very barren. They had places to sleep where their place to sleep was just kind of metal. They had a comfortable bed on there, but it was just metal. They had a sink, they had a toilet, they had windows. It was separated men and women. And then the work that they did was actually not work at all. They went to these kind of classes where they would be asked questions about their life. What did they remember about their life? And then if they passed these questions, they would go on to a next level.
I got to pause because you know what this reminds me of? So I was saying that it sounds like she's in base reality right now. Actually, hearing this now, because what I think happens later in the video, what she calls another level, I think that is actually base reality. Because you know what this reminds me of is that video that I covered a few days ago, called Insights with Tony, where he did that OBE experience, and he said the same thing. He went to what he was calling focus level 21, which may really have been focus level 23 or focus level 24. That's a term from Bob Monroe. He was saying that might be the intermediary stage from this life before the astral or the higher levels of the astral. And he said that exact same thing was like a resort, but he said it almost looked like an apartment complex where there's a lot of things that basically resemble things on Earth. There's food where you don't need to eat when you're in your astral body, but there was food, there was experiences that made you feel kind of like you're still living on Earth and made you feel acclimated still to that same experience, theoretically, for the purpose of sending you back. So I think that's what she's describing right now. And it corroborates with, like I said, that wild OBE from Insights from Tony. And then she talks more about it because she does. And it's funny too, because Tony says there were different levels as well. Like some were nicer than the others. And then the highest astral plane was like really nice comparatively to these other places. So you're going to listen to this and you're going to hear this. Sorry, this is like clicking in my brain as I'm listening to this now again. And I had to say something. I think that's what she's describing. Wild stuff.
And then the next level, if they didn't pass, they would go back to the beginning. They would go back to that first room. They would be asked those questions, go through the orientation again. They would start the process over. But if they kept passing, they would go up these levels. Just like in the elevator, when I went way down, they would go up these levels. Their clothing would change. Their residence would change. It would become more comfortable each time. And they would start to have different experiences. Like they could go outside, their food would change, and all the food there was delicious. It was like fresh food, organic, and you didn't need to eat that much to be full. And outside, it looked like, not to be religious here, but it looked like the Garden of Eden, if you would imagine it in your mind. And then I didn't see buildings for a while, but I did later on. I was then shown, I left that group, and I was shown a group that had been there for a while. And that group, they were wearing, they almost looked like they were wearing plain clothes like you'd see on Earth. And they only worked for 2 to 3 hours a day, and their work was taking care of the place. I don't know. I wasn't there long enough to see really what that meant. I don't know if that meant the plumbing or if it meant government. I have no idea, but that's what I was told. And then their places of residence looked like living rooms. There were fireplaces. They had television that some of the same programs were playing, like here on Earth. There was The Bachelor. I saw that playing on one. They had some of the same movies. And I had a chance to talk to someone there. And she told me that, I said, well, do you miss being home? And she said, yes, I hope to go home soon. I feel that I've been here for about a year. And I said, does your family miss you? And she said, I'm not allowed to talk about it.
It's funny now, the more I think about it, that's exactly what I think she's describing is exactly what Insights from Tony described. And again, you see all these things. They're given jobs, they're given duties, just like here. They're given food, just like here. They have TVs. They're even watching the shows that are presented here. It sounds again like one big realm with the sole intent of keeping people tied or attached to this realm, likely incentivizing them to come back. That's what it sounds like. That's what it sounds like she's visiting in this realm right now. So this is, I don't think this is the same place that she describes later on, but man, isn't that wild? Because we just saw that, if you saw the video, we saw that video from Insights from Tony with that crazy OBE, where he's talking about the resort that's like an apartment complex, exactly what she's describing. And we got to hold on to these accounts, excuse me, because I think the other NDEs with the family and the religious figures, and it's beautiful and it's amazing, and we're here to learn and love, those are going to be all over the place, likely because those are part of the manipulation. These are the ones that I think are going to come through much more rarely, because they shed light on the true nature of the system, which is likely intentionally by design being suppressed. So when they come through and when they corroborate like this, holy smokes, we got to really pay attention to all these amazing details, because I don't think there's going to be that many of them overall. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there'll be more to come, and maybe there's more that are out there that I haven't seen yet. But that's my theory. That's my theory.
So then I went back to the tour guide and I said, what happens if they came here when they were asleep? What's happening now? Are they in a coma? Did they pass? And then he said, I have another room to show you.
Just ignores her. What happens? He says, I got another room to show you. I think it does kind of get answered, actually. So maybe it's not a total distraction move there, but okay, here we go. Remember, Intuitive Underground talked about the pods. They talked about the projection, that this is a copy, that this reality is some sort of a copy or a virtual simulation, a simulacra of another base reality. And here she gets into it and she talks about this exactly. And it's a lot to take on. When I first heard it, it kind of gave me a bad feeling in my stomach, but now we're hearing it from more and more people and it's lining up. So without further ado, let's hear it.
And this is where he took me to the room with all the pods. So this is the part that I've been a little nervous to share about. But he took me to this room that didn't seem to have any ending to it. The ceiling didn't end, the walls didn't end. The climate was cool. It was lit with lights that didn't seem fluorescent, but it wasn't natural lighting either. But when you walked me in there, every person that I had encountered on my tour, and I had walked through thousands of people, everyone there, their actual body was in a pod. And he said, what you must understand is that every person on Earth is here. Earth is a copy. We're calling Earth Soul Earth Exile 13 because it is in its 13th version. And when you come here, people have woken up out of their dreams because they have burst out of the matrix. Their consciousness has been asking, what more is there? And some part of them has woken up enough that we have brought them back here because they are going through a reorientation. And we bring them back here to go through this process. We ask them, what do you remember in kindergarten? What do you remember in your 5th grade time? What do you remember through your high school years? And then at some point, we give them a chance to create a life here. And I said, well, what happens to them there? And they said, their life goes on through an avatar. That if a person has their body in a pod and their consciousness is creating a life on this place where I was visiting. Their earth body has an avatar there. And at some point, they are given a choice. Do you want to stay here, or do you want to go back to Soul Earth Exile 13? And if they choose to stay, they remain on this place that I saw. And if they choose to go back, they go back to Soul Earth Exile 13. When they go back to Soul Earth Exile 13, the process for that is they go up to their pod and they merge back with their body. They have about 2 seconds to go back into that pod. There's a button that they push so they don't suffocate because there's liquid in there. And there's a moment where they can decide if they want to remember this experience or not. And that's why there are people on this earth who are remembering these places, that they're remembering that they are in pods because they likely chose to remember. And then they wake up. They wake up and they had this wild dream where they were gone for 6 months or a year. They've gone to the place where our physical bodies actually are stored. This earth is just a copy. As collectively, as a people, we kind of know this because we've been talking about it as, I think this is made up. I think this is a matrix or a hologram. We're right.
Okay, so there's a lot of things I want to talk about in that last section. Number one, she talks about seeing all these pods in this massive building, this massive facility. Intuitive Underground said they saw the same thing in their remote viewing experiences. I got to send them this video because I wonder if they've ever even seen this or heard this account, but the overlaps are pretty crazy. Now, the other thing that stands out to me is she said, well, sometimes people are bursting out and they're asking what do they want more? And then they come back and then they have this reorientation. They're asked all these questions about their life. Where I get skeptical, not of her story, but what I mean is where I get skeptical is, are the people that she's talking to or interacting with, are they being sincere? Or are they part of the system and they're just trying to manipulate her to come back into the system and be compliant? Like, is this outside of the archonic system, or is this all part of it, what we consider to be the archonic system that just wants to keep the system going? You get what I'm saying? And again, she goes to that other place where she mentions talking to an AI agent, and we hear that these AI entities are part of the entire reincarnation trap. And it's almost like she talks about these two systems as different systems later in the video, as if this base reality created this for a particular purpose and then it was hijacked. That's one possibility, that the archonic system is sort of like a virus within this simulacra, but it wasn't meant to be that way. This is one possibility. Or everything that she's seeing and interacting with some of these entities or people that she's talking to, she may think that they're being sincere, but maybe that's just, again, another layer or another level of deception, and she's just not able to see the difference. I don't know which is which. I'm going to have to really sit and think about everything she's saying later on, how it could all fit together. Right now, I'm just not sure. It's I don't know which way the correct narrative is, or what would make the most sense. Either way, I think there is major legs to this idea that she's seeing base reality. Whether she's been given the right narrative or not, I don't know, but she's seeing base reality, and it is lining up that perhaps this is just some projection. Now, we're going to get into more details of what she sees, but also she's going to also talk about this idea of amnesia, the memory wipe, like that, which we've all known about, which we've all talked about, and it's brought up in this next clip. I believe it's in here, but also she talks about how potentially we can return back to what we're supposed to be doing, I guess is what she says here, she believes we're supposed to be doing, and how we've lost our way, and how we can return back to that.
Gotten that we are supposed to work together. And so when some of us have a chance to go to this other realm, what we're learning there, what we're relearning, is that we work together. Because that other place I went, when our bodies were in pods, we're not captured over there. We're working together, and that's what we're relearning. And so those who have that chance to live there for a while If they choose to come back, it seems like the opportunity is to come back and rewrite how we live here, because it's supposed to be collaborative. And it got corrupted when we decided, hey, well, I have this knowledge or I have this amount of money, so I'm going to keep it over you. I'm going to control you with it.
And it may be what she's saying, right? It may have gotten corrupted, and that may be the purpose, or this could again be, that's, I'm a little suspicious of that. It could be again part of the manipulation, and it could be a broken system that is unfixable. But these ideas are given that, oh, okay, wait a minute, we're supposed to do this, or we're supposed to change that. And these are the things that Howdy McCoskey talks about in terms of trying to fix a system, but just by trying to fix, you're then participating and you're kind of falling into that trap. So that may very well be what is happening here is, okay, no. The world is out of balance or out of whack right now because you guys are out of alignment. But once you get aligned, once you start vibrating higher, now we can sort of make the world work how it's supposed to. Is that the case? Is it even supposed to work, or is it supposed to be in constant disarray and constant conflict to have the right output, right? Like these are just questions I don't know the answers to, but I just wanted to throw that out there before I let her continue.
And there doesn't have to be any judgment attached to that. It's just the way we evolved. And now we can rewrite that. And they didn't necessarily give me a process for that because they said we are doing it as we speak. And this earth that we have here now, when we talk about things like the new earth, the 5D earth, they showed me that we're already there. All of the dimensions there's an infinite amount of dimensions that are available to us. We already resonate in those dimensions. The more we are authentic with ourselves and each other, and the more we rely on each other, and we are authentically kind, we don't have to ignore our bad days or our feelings, but the more we just sit with it and say, okay, what are we going to do with this? And let's rewrite how we manage conflict. Those types of ideas. And we don't necessarily take our time with it and say, okay, and next generation will handle this, but we do it now. Well, then we start to go into the 5th dimensional frequency that's already there. We start to experience it without spiritual bypassing. We create new structures that are more balanced in equality. That's what I saw when I was over there. I saw all of us on Earth and all of us that were there as workers in that other space. We're all in pods.
Like I said, if I would have heard this a few months ago, I'd been like, what next? I'm not listening to this. But yeah, that kind of scary thought that this is some sort of a projection and then there's a base reality and we are in pods and then we're manifesting like all these movies that we've seen. Obviously the Matrix, even to some extent, like the movie, literally Avatar, she saw it, she witnessed it, and she has a very, very, very clear recollection of it. So wild. Now here's the mention. It wasn't in that last clip. Here's the mention of the amnesia, the memory wipe that it was discussed. But here's the silver lining is that the way that she frames it, we do have the choice. So I wonder if all of us having these memory wipes or having our memories cleared or whatever as we enter into each life, I wonder, and we're not going to remember, right? Because our memories are white, but I wonder if it is actually a choice, but we're manipulated into agreeing with it over and over and over again, as opposed to just being a forceful memory wipe. I wonder that because of what she says right here.
After I saw that, I said, do I get to make a choice? And they said, yes, you can choose, since you've seen it all, your trip is a little bit different. You've been here before. You've been through the cycle. You can choose to be here as well, but you'll start from the beginning like everybody else. We will kind of give you an amnesia. You'll have an amnesia effect, so you're not going to remember seeing all this stuff. But if you choose, you'll do this. You'll have kind of an avatar. You will have an avatar who will be mom to your children and your husband. Well, my ego got in there and I thought, I don't want that. No, nobody can do it like me. So I said, no, I wanted to come back, but I did make the choice to remember. So that's how I know this near-death experience. That's what I know, my friend.
So she got to make that choice. That's very interesting. What I would think, just to clarify, what she's saying is, if she would have stayed there, then she would have had, they would have had an avatar, AI system, whatever it may be, some sort of entity to take her place here on Earth, or some consciousness, or whatever, to fill the body and then basically take over her role. Wild, wild stuff. But why, right? Like, why are they telling her, okay, she can stay, but then you'll have to start over and move up? What's the point of all this? It's not really explained. I'm not saying that she should have the answers. This is not me saying that I'm finding holes in her story. I'm finding holes in their story. I'm finding holes in what they're saying. It doesn't really make sense. Okay, you can stay here, but you're going to have to be reset and work your way up for what? What is this work? Where is this going towards? And I think that's the problem that so many of us have when it is positioned in this way as a learning experience or some sort of progression. How does that make sense with the memory wipe? So perhaps one thing that Intuitive Underground was saying, and others have said as well, perhaps that is generally the purpose of incarnations or experiences, is obviously to have these experiences and to learn from those. But when it's accompanied with a memory wipe, it seems that a natural process that is productive is hijacked and then manipulated. That's what it feels like to me. So it's all there. It can serve that same purpose, but for the memory wipe, which effectively eliminates the productive element, but then keeps you stuck in limbo. Why? Likely for energy extraction and some of the other motivations that Intuitive Underground had mentioned. So it's like some sort of a experiment where they're learning and they're gathering data from it. I don't know. But either way, I think the big takeaway is, yeah, pods, people, pods, crazy stuff. Now, here, Jeff Marr chimes in and he asks point blank, was that base reality? And she says, yes.
Do you say that control room where the people are working and where bodies are in pods, is that base reality? Is that the true physical reality there?
Yes. Yes. If there is a true physical reality where we have hearts that bleed, I would say yes. That's what it felt like. And I was just thinking about that the other day. If we are vibrational here, even though we feel like, you cut me, I bleed. If that's really not true, well, then where are we physically existing? It's that place. And I don't know what it's called, but when I ask, I keep hearing Tartaria.
Did you see your body in a pod?
I did. I was able to see my body. My body, I'm 48 right now, and I love my body, but I recognize that I have stretch marks and things from having children. I know exactly what my body looks like. When I saw my body there, I was maybe 20 or 21, and I've had a mole removed. My mole was still there that I had from birth. And I was young. Everybody there was young. Everybody was in a young body. And there were people that I had a chance to ask them, how old are you on Earth? I'm 7. I'm 78. I'm 50. Some people didn't want to go back because if they went back, they wouldn't have much time to live, even though they had children there. They knew, well, if I go back, I'm in trouble with the law. I want to be here. Some people chose to stay there, but they were all different ages. But there, in that planet, everybody was young.
Now
What's interesting about that, and what I wanted to talk about that, and again, yes, base reality, but the fact that she mentions all the bodies are young, one of the theories from Intuitive Underground was that in the pods, maybe the reason why we agreed to go into the pods or have accepted that fate and then wanted to project out is because perhaps our bodies on base reality were suffering some sort of trauma, and that was instead of leaving base reality, they said, well, you can have this other option. You can be placed in this pod and project into another dimension, something like that. But at least it seems like from her account, I mean, it doesn't sound like at least the body seems young and vibrant and theoretically healthy. So maybe that's not it. Maybe it is some other manipulation or reason as to why people are agreeing to go into these pods and then project into another reality. I don't know. I don't know. why people would agree to this and why there's so many, and then why they're being told these things to come back and these different levels and the resort area and I don't know. It's still so much to get my head around. Okay, well, anyways, moving on. She did say while she's in base reality, she is in a light avatar because she's able to see her real physical body in the pod. And so she talks about this in this next section about avatars and base bodies still being in base reality and how they can kind of all coexist. Pretty interesting.
You have the workers there that are operating the computers and the machines and maybe overwatching the pods. I would assume those people are in base reality. But the other people that were there that were dreaming here in this reality, in my opinion, they're also as an avatar. You know, their body was in the pod, but they were there as an avatar as well as just like being here, right?
Right. So their base body, their flesh and bone, is in the pod. And then when they are here on Earth, that's avatar. Then when they visit there, they are an avatar. And then there's some point where they graduate to a certain level that they are actually in their base body, and their base body is not in the pod anymore. There is some point there where their base body is not in the pod. So if they decide to go back to Earth, they are going back into the pod. They're merging back into the pod.
So fairly interesting. I thought that was a fascinating notion that obviously, you know, she's not in her base body, but visiting that realm. And that is theoretically possible, I guess, for all of us. But now we get into this idea of this being an exile planet, because she said they call it planet exile, Earth exile, Soul exile 13, whatever the name was. Is this an exile planet? Does this mean it's a prison planet? She explains here.
They said exile comes from, it's called that for two reasons. First of all, in our Earth history, there have been several times where Earth has blown up, like a reset button has been hit. And so this is the 13th iteration of Earth. I asked about the prison, and they said also right now, because so many of us collectively have lost our power, that this is existing as a prison planet, that when humans die, they are getting into a reincarnation loop. And they did show me the way out of it, which I can share today. And they said that when we are here, because we don't know about the system in place, because this system of the pods, that's not the prison. We all agreed to that to keep us safe, and we're here to experience. This is the playground Earth. But since we were supposed to remember that, but the corruption was that was taken from us, that part of our belief system, or that not belief system, let me take that out, that doesn't feel good. That part of our knowing was taken from us, and what was filtered in were different extraterrestrial nations, hence the reptilians. At some point, they came in and they started to feed on us, because we as humans, we do such a great job of emoting. We are both joyful and we can be hateful, and those emotions are yummy to those reptilian factions. Now, the human in me feels like an idiot saying those things out loud, but I've seen it. I know it to be true, and I know some reptilians in my life, and they have told me as such. And so when that happened, there was a treaty put in place to try to keep it in check. And then that treaty was not respected at some point. So we are being farmed at this point, which is why there are some of us who are being shown what the truth is, so we can say, hey, I don't want that anymore.
Okay. There's some issues. Okay. So she's saying that the real purpose is that's not the prison. The being in the pods is not the prison. We go in the pods, we agree to it. By the way, that could still be a prison, right? If we get manipulated into agreeing. But she's saying we go into it and this is meant to be a playground. I think essentially what she's saying is that this playground was then hijacked, and then we're stuck in a reincarnation trap. And then these other entities that have come in almost like a virus are then feeding off of our energy. The thing that doesn't make sense or that doesn't jive with what Intuitive Underground is saying is Intuitive Underground, from what they've seen in their data, is that the energy that is being extracted, the loosh that is being farmed from us, is used to power the simulation. Well, if the simulation is being run on base reality by these other humans, or which we participated in, well, then obviously they're complicit in the energy extract. I mean, you know what I mean? They're then taking that power. They're the ones that are farming us, and they're using it to power this whole simulation. And it's just one big cycle. So this idea of, again, if what Intuitive Underground saw is legitimate and that data is accurate, this doesn't really add up. And I think it feels like a manipulation that she has received from the people that are operating at base reality to tell her that, okay, she's seen a certain amount. Now we're going to spin it this way. And the spin we're going to give to it is, okay, look, yes, there's a reincarnation trap, and we're going to tell you how to escape. We're going to give you this information, blah, blah, blah. But ultimately, right, just like the Russian dolls where you have the different layers. So she's allowed to know up to a certain level of layers, but not all the way. But then when it comes to being here in the pod, no, but you chose to be in the pod. The pod's cool. It's just the rest of it, and the archons and the people that are trying to manipulate you to go to the light. Yeah, that is bad, and you can avoid it. And here we're going to tell you how, but then she doesn't know how to escape the next level. Like, that's what I'm thinking. Where does the manipulation end? Where does it stop? I don't know. We're going to keep trying to find out. Now she talks specifically about the reincarnation trap and how to get out of it. This is actually pretty cool because this goes along with, I think, what David Icke and what other folks have said in terms of being firm, having awareness, and stating your intention, stating what you want. And therefore, when you do that effectively and powerfully, you cannot be trapped.
Reincarnation trap. One of the things that was put into place, one of the ideas put into place a long time ago was go into the light. Go into the light. That's wrong. It's part of the trap. There are archons in place. We'll call them bouncers. And they are waiting for us when we cross over, because what their job is. And this is not part of the planet that I saw. This is part of entrapment from another race of beings. But they're around us when we leave our avatar and we're trying to get back. What they do is they present us with, it feels like temptation, really, to try to get us to stay in our doubt, to stay with our avatar and not reunite with our true self. So what they'll do is they'll first show us light that feels so warm and wonderful. So we'll say yes to that. And also we've been shown that in so many movies and literature. So they'll first show us light, then they'll show us family, reunite with family, loved ones. Then they'll show us possibly angels, and they might show us sacred shapes, like sacred geometry. And then we must say, oh, this must be heaven. They will show us several gateways. Every time you see a gateway or a temptation, no matter what it is, we are told to stand on our 2 feet, shoulders back, like you're about to give a speech. And you say, I revoke any contracts or agreements I made under amnesia. Every time, that's the password. I revoke any contracts or agreements I made under amnesia. And they will let you through. They have to let you through.
Okay, there it is. Those are the keys in her words. So, take it with a grain of salt, but effectively saying that, taking your power back and stating it clearly, effectively, and the power of those words shall set you free. But again, I have questions when she's talking about these other entities or these other species that have come in and that have infiltrated the system. Like, where do they come from? Are they digital creations within this simulacra? Are they other entities in base reality that have hacked into the system that are trying to manipulate it? Like, what's the full story? Or are they, again, is the creators and the maintainers of the system lying? And have they built in those systems? And have they built in these entities, maybe as digital entities, to keep us entrapped? I mean, what is the truth? I don't know. But I feel like something doesn't add up here. And again, I just want to keep stating, I'm not saying that she's trying to spin a narrative in any negative way. I just think that we're all subject to manipulation, and any of us that have these experiences, we must be very careful, because it seems like the manipulation has no bounds, and there's just so many narratives and weird stories that come from so many different people that I think have had these experiences. Why do we have differences? I think because people are being spun different narratives intentionally to kind of keep the disinformation and misinformation flowing. I think the goal and the objective for us who are trying to find truth is to look for the overlaps, to look for the similarities, and just kind of follow the trail of breadcrumbs. But yeah, my point is, we have to be very careful when we're listening to entities or these people that are telling us, well, no, this is how it is, that's how it is. Like, we know manipulation is out there, so we just got to be mindful of who to listen to. And I think ultimately what a lot of the messages we're taking away is, we got to listen to ourselves. We got to listen to our inner selves. And that's who we look to. That's who we listen to. Now, in this section, she talks about this reality and saying how this whole reality was designed initially. And she says, we actually co-designed this reality with Source. Again, take it for what it's worth, but want to include this as well.
Because in the first place, we designed this earth with Source to be a place where we could come and learn the good stuff and the hard stuff. And we got to get back to that. And this is the way we keep on the path.
Why does Source let all this happen to us?
Because true Source is not a religious God. True Source is not a decision maker. True Source is made of pure love and energy. True Source is not a patriarch or a mother. The God that makes decisions is a religious God. And a religious God can serve us as well. We can pray to a religious God. There's nothing wrong with that. But if we go above and beyond that, the God that we're all connected to is bigger than that. We're older than that as souls. We go way back with Source. We're talking about Source that created everything. And the religious God, the angels actually call him the Demiurge. And the Demiurge created himself as a god, almost like Zeus, as a smaller god. And it's not wrong. It's just that at one point, Source, the original God, was so excited to experience energy that there was almost like this explosion. And the Demiurge, the smaller god, was off by himself and thought he was by himself. Well, if you thought you were by yourself, you would start to create your own universe. And that's what happened. And this is our universe, housed by God. And so many people have been worshiping God, the Demiurge. This is found often in the Gnostic Gospels. And I've seen it on the other side many, many times, that there are smaller gods that are not wrong at all, but they fit into the larger God. And the larger God that we could call the monad, the larger God is not a decision maker. It's all-encompassing love, which allows us to be the hands and feet of God. And the hands and feet of God, it's not positive or negative. It's all. It just is. It is, because as we grow and live, we're experiencing each other.
One thing that matches up with what intuitive underground, what thing that they saw when they tried to remote view Source, the God mind, whatever it is, they saw the same idea that it's not all positive, it's not negative, it's just everything. And so that resonates. But where I get lost in what she's saying is, she talks about the Demiurge and the Gnostic ideas, which we've all, I think on this channel, are very familiar with. And then she says, we created this reality with Source. What reality? Is she talking about base reality? Is she talking about this simulated reality? And then who is the Demiurge? Then is the Demiurge the creator of this simulation, of this copy, which is also talked about in the Gnostic text. Like, and then who is that? Is that is that who she's talking to in base reality? Is that the Demiurge, or kind of like the architect in the Matrix? You know what I mean? It gets a little confusing, because then that's the narrative that she's referring to. It would be like the Demiurge would create the simulation. So then why are there entities? So then why is it meant to be something different than what it is? And we lost our path, but did we? Because wasn't it created already to be misaligned? You see how things aren't really adding up. And again, it's not because of her. I think she's been given narratives that may not be fully correct. This is just what I'm thinking in real time. Remember I said in that other video talking about just truth and discernment, and the idea that ultimately, even if whoever's in control of the system, they have way more memories, they have way more intelligence, but ultimately the advantage that we have is we have truth on our side. We're trying to seek truth. And no matter how brilliantly you spin a lie, there's always going to be cracks in it. And I think as we continue to dig deeper and just keep a keen eye on what's going on and what different people are saying and how things match up or how they don't, I think we got a real shot at figuring out the true nature of reality. I think this is the last slide, right? Yeah, that is it. Holy smokes. Big takeaways, base reality. This idea of the pods, this idea of the bad copy that is this realm, the projection, the astral bodies, even the region that was seen from insights from Tony. All of this is now being confirmed. The overlaps are the keys on this journey and on this pathway, and we found a lot of them here. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, guys. Did this blow you away like it blew me away? Shout out once again to Andrew, who sent me this video. I wish I would have seen it earlier in a way, because I feel bad I didn't respond to your email soon enough, but in another way, I'm so glad that I saw it today and not earlier, because it was perfect timing and it hit me, I think, exactly how it should have hit me to make this video. That's all I got. Thank you guys so much for joining. Send me more stuff. Send me more videos. Send me more content. And I'll see you next time. Take it easy.